Welcome, America East alums, to this virtual programming. We are excited to be joined by Andrew McGill from the Bulfinch Group, and our topic today is going to be creating a budget 101. Thank you, Andrew, for being on here. Let's jump right into these questions. First, I want to start off with creating a budget can be a daunting task for some, for others, it may not. Can you start out by telling us why we would want to create a personal budget? And then what are some of the first steps to take in creating that budget for ourselves?
First and foremost, thank you very much for having me, Jessica. Awesome to be on with everyone. I hope everyone learned something from this. So, for starters, when it comes to creating a budget, why might you want to do that? First and foremost, I think the word budget makes people cringe, a lot of people. I think it makes them feel like they are pinching pennies or not able to spend any money. So, when we work with our clients, we say things like cash flow map or a spending plan. We try to stay away from the word budget. Um, at the end of the day, what a budget is, and the reason why people want to have it, is because they want to, ideally, you want to be organized with your cash flow. You want to be able to know where all the dollars are going so that you can be in control of your money instead of your money being in control of you. Now, what are some of the things that you should be thinking about when it comes to a budget or a cash flow map or cash flow planning? It's just to keep it very high level, it's figuring out exactly what your inflows are, figuring out what is leaving, whether it be your bills, lifestyle, taxes, and then figuring out what you're able to save, what you are able to keep in your or your family's pocket.
Thank you for that. Next question I have for you, Andrew, is what are some tips on what kind of programs, platforms, technologies that could be used to create a budget? There's a lot of things out there. So what advice do you have?
You're right, Jessica. There are certainly a number of apps that are out there when it comes to budgeting. I swear, when I'm on my phone, when I'm on Instagram, I am swiping and I see 4 different apps that I can get for budgeting. And I'm sure all of my clients feel the same way when they see that. Now, there are certainly apps that work out there. Something that I see time after time work for my clients is just using Excel. We use it in our practice. Our clients also use it. We find that it's very helpful to clients. Keep it very simple. Now, there are apps like Mint, they do work. I think that the most important app out there right now is just your banking app. Okay, so when I say that, let's say someone who might bank at Bank of America, familiarize yourself with that app and figure out how you can get into your, whether it be your checking statement or your savings statement, and figuring out how you can get in there and see where your money's actually going. That's step number one. Having that awareness at the end of each month, looking at your checking account and figuring out where the dollars are going. And what I find is that a lot of my clients who might sit down and do a budget, they end up sometimes it's like it's just a guess on some of these numbers. But if you aren't time after time, month after month, looking at your statements and seeing where some of these dollars are going, don't be hard on yourself. There's going to be times when you're going to spend more money and spend less money. But first, just having a baseline, understanding where your dollars are going. That's number one. And then once you do that, I find you can write down some of these line items that you see in your statements. And that'll give you a better idea of what you should go and put on your Excel and say that these are the dollars that are leaving my world on a regular basis.
How can identifying financial goals help you create a budget? For example, saving up to buy a house, paying off debt, saving up for a trip or a vacation. These financial goals change over time. So, how can we achieve these goals and align them with our budgets?
That's a great question. So to answer that, I would say, as I said from the beginning, the word budget can be very difficult for some people. It can create some negative connotations about like, I don't want to stop spending on something. Um, what we talk with our clients about is looking at the opposite of that. Looking at, if I spend less, I'm going to be able to save more, and if I'm able to save more, I'm going to be able to put that money towards things like buying my first home, buying that car that I wanted, be able to go on that vacation. So kind of looking at from the glass being half full more than half empty, so to speak. We like to make sure that our clients create that budget, figure out where their dollars are going so that they can save more, and then take those dollars and put them in the different buckets. And when I say the different buckets, I mean what you're trying to save for. Is it retirement? Is it an investment account? Is it your first home? Whatever it may be, it's personal to you. But that sometimes can drive the bus when it comes to making sure that you get financially organized. So challenge yourself to have those goals, and that'll lead you to success.
Another big piece of when thinking about your money and your budget is savings. What advice do you have to give to individuals when they're deciding how much to save?
So when it comes to how much to save, I would just say first and foremost, our most successful clients and what we call world-class savers are clients that save between 15 to 25% of their income. Now, again, the real world class is 25%, and there are people who save more than that. But when it comes to how much to save, we that is the ideal is at 25%. But what we find is that a lot of those clients didn't start out at 25%. They got financially organized, they created things like a budget, they created a savings plan, and they challenged themselves or they worked with our team to help them to increase their saving year after year or month after month to build themselves up to saving 25% of their income so that they can then reallocate those savings to the proper vehicles, as I mentioned before, that they're trying to save for. And to give an analogy, when you're going to be training for a marathon that's 26 miles, the first day of training, you don't do 26 miles. You start small and you build your way up. Saving is no different. You know yourself, you know what you can do. Start at that number and build yourself up. And if you need to work with a professional, hold you accountable to that, then do that.
Andrew, can you tell us what some common budget mistakes are and some advice for individuals on how they can keep themselves accountable with their personal budgets?
I can absolutely speak to that, Jessica. The first thing that I often see is when we ask our clients to put together a budget or a cash flow map, whatever we want to call it, is they oftentimes will think and write down that they spend a lot less than they actually do. And that often makes them feel much better about themselves. But we find that our clients will go back to their budget or they'll redo it and they'll find out that they actually are spending sometimes double the amount that they thought they were. And when they do that, if they hadn't changed the budget, they would look at the end of the year and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I wasn't able to save nearly as much as I wanted to, or I wasn't able to buy that first home that I wanted to, even though my budget said I was going to save all this money. So making sure that you are realistic, and I would say almost start higher and give yourself that buffer so that you aren't necessarily, you make it more challenging for yourself to actually try to save more. And how do you hold yourself accountable? The way I would answer that is continuing to check in with your budget, continuing to create automations, whether that be having a direct deposit that goes into your checking account or your savings account, and creating structure and process around your budget and your savings, which we work with our clients to help them through. But if you want to hold yourself accountable, just continue to check on it. Similar to how you look at your bank statements, look at your budget every month and continue to figure out where things are going right, where are they going wrong. Because if you don't have a plan and you're not checking on it, the plan's almost useless.
In our current times, the pandemic has affected many individuals. Andrew, can you give some advice, talk about how when your source of income changes, how that would change creating a personal budget or how that would change your current budget?
I can absolutely speak to that. And for anyone who is unemployed, I'm very sorry for what you're going through right now. Not easy for anyone. For those of you who, we'll start with, for those who have a budget, I would recommend taking a deep dive into that, figuring out potential areas, whether it may not be easy, but find areas that you can cut. Okay. Number two, if you don't have a budget, I would recommend now more than ever would be a good time to create one to figure out exactly where your money is going. And number three is whether you have a budget or not, you want to make sure that you are figuring out exactly what is offered to you with an unemployment check. Figuring out, make sure that you are getting the money that you deserve during this time. And talking with a professional can sometimes be helpful in this, making sure that you are looking down every avenue to figure out during these hard times how you can get some income. And the other piece, not only that is so important, and so is the budget, because a lot of people during these times won't even look to see what they can get for income, and they end up just using a credit card and they rack up credit card debt, and then that can just snowball when this is all said and done. And one of the things I recommend, if anyone knows anyone who is going through this situation, one of the things that we can all learn from this is how important an emergency fund is. So have a lot of times people will say to me like, "Not this won't ever happen to me. I won't be out of work." But just look at this now. I'm not saying coronavirus may not come around again, but there's always things that pop up. And having an emergency fund, having 6 months of liquid savings available for times like these is so incredibly important. And if you don't have that, there are options for you right now. But just please, everyone, learn from this and let's build up our emergency funds.
Our America East alums are at all different phases in their lives. What advice do you have for those who've just graduated? And what advice do you have for those who are looking to either reestablish or polish their personal budgets?
To answer that question, no matter what stage you are in life, if you just graduated from college, maybe you're in college, maybe you are a teacher at the college, maybe you have kids, whatever it is, I have never worked and we've never had a client that has ever said that organization of cash flow has hurt them. So no matter who you are, dusting off that budget or just starting one, getting financially organized helps everyone. And when you get financially organized, it allows you to control your money instead of your money controlling you. And by doing that again and getting organized, you can then create a savings plan to ultimately allow you to live the life that you want to live. You'll be able to take advantage of opportunities. You would be able to mitigate any threats that may come your way and ultimately live a life that you dreamed of living.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for joining us, providing great insights, advice, tips, mistakes to avoid on creating a budget. We appreciate your time with us today.
It's a pleasure being on with you. Thanks for having me.